Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it. I got to pull it
Fill in
up.
the fill in the blank.
Go
The
ahead.
preseason coaches poll is out, and it's
Yes.
blank. The Fighting Irish are in at number 13 in the first coaches poll.
Typical, I guess. I mean, I'm fine with it. I think it's a skosh low. I would have them anywhere from 8 to 12 and be fine with it. You know, you know what I mean? Like they've got plenty of opportunities in their schedule. Like if I was Michigan, for example, okay, if I was Michigan and I was preseason ranked like 15 or something like that, I'd be nervous because their schedule is a bunch of cupcakes, and so it would be difficult. Now, granted, they would be undefeated, but it would be difficult to continue to climb the polls because of the weakness of their schedule, right? But they're ranked number 2. And so, or somewhere around there, I think they're 2, but they'll just stay
Michigan's
there.
Number 2.
Yeah, they'll just stay there because they'll keep winning. So their strength of schedule doesn't even matter quite as much. You know what I mean? So like
odds are they'll be there until November because they're not going to play anybody until November.
Exactly. So Notre Dame has plenty of opportunities to climb up these polls just by winning, you know, because they've got some big dogs on their schedule in September and October, et cetera, et cetera. So 13's fine. I mean, it's fine for now. Some of the ones ahead of them are a little suspect, but whatever.
I mean, I guess Notre Dame's got enough questions that may, you know, like you can, like 13, I don't think is a major slight. It's ballpark anyway. And that's kind of, you know, why some people say, well, you shouldn't even do polls until, you know, like October 1st or, you know, whatever, when you find out what teams are and stuff like that. But hey, guess what? It is August 7th. We have the first coaches poll.
Right.
And now we have something to talk about. So,
and the other school, besides the like 8 schools that are playing in week 0, right? Every other school in the nation has like 3 practices under their belt, which means they haven't even put on full pads. But we'll make a preseason poll. We'll get it out there.
That's very true. That's true. You know, because Notre Dame obviously started a week earlier than everybody else because of the fact they're playing in week 0. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the only 3 teams 4 maybe. I'll just run through the whole thing for maybe people who haven't seen it. You got Georgia at number 1, then Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State. I don't think anyone's probably got any problems with them, even though, as Vince mentioned, you know, Michigan's schedule, what actually are they? I mean, they're kind of like Notre Dame. Michigan's schedule is going to come, or Michigan's season is going to come down to like 2 or 3 games. It's really going to be, you know,
Penn State, Ohio State,
Michigan State. Like, Michigan State's not that good, but just because it's a rival. And for the last couple of years, Michigan State did own, you know, Jim Harbaugh. But then number 5, LSU. Number 6, USC. Number 7, Penn State. Not really sold completely on them.
No.
Then Florida State. Then Clemson. Tennessee. Great system they had last year. New quarterback. Joe Milton going to be the guy? Don't really know yet. Washington, Texas, and Notre Dame. So, like, I think you can make a case really for anybody from, what is that, like 7 through 13 could be interchangeable.
Absolutely. 100%. Like, you know, and it's amazing. This year, I feel like there's going to be even more parity than in past years, because if you go 1 through 13, how many of those schools are starting quarterbacks that have like minimal to 0 experience as a college quarterback? It's the majority of those schools.
Right.
The only schools that are bringing back quarterbacks of any kind of substance is Michigan, and I think that's debatable, but he started all last year. Okay, fine. So Michigan
had a high recruiting rating.
He did have that, even though Notre Dame passed on him. So Michigan is 1. Who else? Florida State, I believe.
What are we talking about? Experienced quarterbacks?
Experienced quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Texas, I guess you could say.
LSU, USC.
USC, of course.
Florida State. Washington, because they've got Penix.
Texas,
sort of like none of the thing is, none of these guys are more experienced than Sam Hartman. It's just that Hartman wasn't here at Notre Dame last year.
Absolutely.
So.
And that's why that you're kind of making my point for me then, is because Notre Dame does have an experienced quarterback.
Right.
Arguably the most experienced quarterback of anybody in the top 13. Right. Yeah. And I think that bodes well for Notre Dame. I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, you got to play the games. But
if you put Hartman up head to head against any of the quarterbacks in the top 10 or the top, 13, really, Caleb Williams, maybe Penix. Like, who are you going to take over Hartman? Like, any of these teams, I think, would love to have Sam Hartman. Like, Caleb Williams and maybe Penix are the only ones I think you can definitely say
and that's a hot maybe.
Have a head-to-head quarterback advantage.
That's a hot maybe because Penix, after he lost his offensive coordinator, was not good. He had one good year, one terrible year, one better than average year at Washington, and now he's got another year at Washington, right? That's pretty much how it went down. So,
but he was reunited with his coordinator at Washington.
Correct. So, I don't know, man. Trying not to look at it from a Notre Dame point of view, but when you're in the top 20 for total yards and touchdowns in college football history, it's a pretty tough argument to make that you would take somebody else. The only one I would definitely take over Hartman right now is Williams because he has a Heisman Trophy.
Exactly. He's the only one I would definitely take.
Yeah, that's it.
Over him. I saw Crying Belly was saying they're discounting the level of talent in the ACC. I mean, I don't know about that because look at where they've got Florida State and Clemson. They've got them both. They've got them back to back pretty high. So I don't think it's necessarily about that. I think it's probably a little bit more about the system that Hartman was in. People, obviously NFL people had questions about that and how that could translate.
Sure.
Big part of why he's here. And also the, losing what everyone thought was going to be a first-round draft pick like Michael Mayer and just all the inexperience that nobody has seen at wide receiver. We've seen the talent out there because we do get to go to some practices and see what those guys look like, but no one's seen it on game day.
Right.
Yet. So,
exactly.
I mean, you should actually be happy about that as a Notre Dame fan because that combination is going to catch a lot of people off guard, I think.
Right.
So,
and everybody's saying Drake May over Sam Hartman. That's fine from an NFL standpoint. I get that. But we're talking about the
teams that were in this ranking.
Right.
Yeah, North Carolina's not ranked ahead of Notre Dame.
Not there. So that's why Drake May is not part of this conversation.
Right.
That's all. Yes, Drake May has a higher NFL ceiling than Sam Hartman does. I'm not going to get an argument from me on that. But I'm talking about the teams that are above Notre Dame in the poll right now. There's only one quarterback I would take over him, and that's a great position to be in if you're Notre Dame.
But that can also change within
absolutely
because it happens basically every February, right? Even if it doesn't happen during the season, it happens every February. There's going to be a couple quarterbacks who nobody was talking about during the season who people are going to be talking about, oh, should he be a top 10 pick? Should he go number 1? Where does he deserve to go? All this stuff. So Sam Hartman can make a really big case for himself.
Absolutely.
In terms of his pro future with, that's what the next, 5 months are going to show.
Sure. And we got this one, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but Jeffrey says almost every quarterback in the top 15 is going to have to prove it on the field, including Hartman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's top 20 all time in yards and touchdowns. I think he's proven a lot on the field. Now, he has to prove that he can do it at a higher level like at Notre Dame. Agreed. But I think he's proven a lot on the field already.
I do too. And again, I think it's more about can he succeed in a more traditional system, something that's going to look like what he could play in the NFL. I think that's going to go a long way for him.
Right. But we'll see. Again, I hope he looks like he did when he was at, Wake Forest at Notre Dame. If we just get that Sam Hartman, then Notre Dame's going to be just fine. If we get an elevated play Sam Hartman in a pro-style offense with better players around him, look out, folks. Like, this is going to be a fun year.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Tim is being serious here or not. Would you guys really rather have Williams really after last year?
He's talking about the specifics to when he wrote, F the Irish on his nails and all that other crap. Look, he's an a-hole.
We're talking about talent. We're not talking about what he
Right.
does with his fingernails or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
I would
And
still
honestly,
think the guy
if he
with more
played for
talent.
Notre Dame, he would have something that said FUSC on his
100%.
fingernails. It's all interchangeable. It just, he started off at Oklahoma. So,
and look, hey man, Tim, you're a true fan. I love you for it. That's awesome. I get what you're saying. We're trying to take an objective view from a talent standpoint. Caleb Williams is about to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Okay? So he's got a lot of talent, and you'd be silly to turn him down. And if he was your quarterback, you'd love him. You would love the way he was acting.
Jeffrey says, talented a-hole for sure. Well,
It's,
I've got news for you. You know, like Barry Bonds was not the most liked guy in the world, but he was a pretty damn good baseball
correct.
player. So it's like the ranks of college and professional athletes are filled with talented a-holes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talented good guys too, but there's a lot of talented a-holes. So
that is correct.
A talented non-a-hole, Sam Hartman, as far as we know, anyway.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Asked this weekend about going from a Nike school, Wake Forest, of course, was Nike, to an Under Armour school, Notre Dame. Sam Hartman said, quote, "It's just gear." And he was asked, really? And he said, yeah, it's just gear. So I tweeted this. Unsurprisingly, it is at least somewhat polarizing, which, was actually part of the way the question was phrased about, the fact that it has been among the fans a polarizing topic. Some people say he was coached to say that. I mean, there's no denying that Notre Dame players are coached on what to say and what not to say to the media. I don't think that this was one of those things, though. Personally, I don't think he kind of cares a lot. Honestly,
I think he's 24 years old.
Guy. Yeah,
I think he's 24 years old, and
I think he's over
a
lot of that. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I really think he's just, I don't want to say too mature to care about gear, because most of the fans that are upset about this are probably his age or just a little bit older. But he probably doesn't care. Like, that's the least. If you ranked if you ranked the things that Sam Hartman is worried about over the next 5 months, the Under Armour contract at Notre Dame
is not one.
Pretty stinking low on the list. Okay, very, very low. So I'm not surprised that he said that. No, and I highly doubt that if he was coached to say that, the coaching wouldn't have been, it's just gear. Like, that would not have been, hey, say this if they ask you about it.
And
it would
quite
have been,
honestly,
I love Under Armour. It's great.
Most of his questions were most of his answers to questions Saturday were in the paragraph long. I'm holding my hands like long and so you go from like very expansive answers to
just gear.
It's just gear.
Exactly.
So a couple tweet responses or X responses or whatever the hell we're supposed to call it now. If it's just gear, show us a poll from all players and equipment managers showing which equipment/gear they prefer. Survey should include design, quality, comfort, performance, selection choices, equipment options, and manufacturing experience. #empirical data. I bet that
you really think the equipment managers give
that guy's really fun at parties, by the way. I bet.
Do you think the equipment managers really give a crap what they're giving out to the players? Like, as it passes through their hands to be given out?
Right.
Like, come on, dude.
Right. And that's Sam Hartman was asked a question and he answered it. Every player you ask this question is going to have their own opinion / answer. Now, obviously, if it's behind closed doors or with microphones and cameras in front of you, you might get different answers.
Right.
But again, like how deep do we have to take this?
Well, and then also, here's the thing. Sam Hartman is not going to be here when the new contract starts.
Yeah. He was going to be here for Under Armour no matter what.
Right. So it makes zero difference to that man what contract that Notre Dame has in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm just imagining that guy, like in the corner at, in the office and at parties arguing with everybody with every pedantic little detail that, pops into his head. Another tweet, studies show that Nike schools are more likely to make the college football playoff and win national championships. Same is true across all sports.
No, it's not.
That response actually lacks empirical data, by the way. Like, where is your studies show that Nike schools are more likely?
First of all, Nike sponsors more schools than anybody else.
Yes.
So the odds are much better.
The correlation between, you're exactly right. The correlation from one to another, there's no actual data that shows that Nike schools are more like. I guess there is some data that shows that because of that is basically the gear that they happen to be wearing.
I don't know what the percentages are, and I wouldn't even begin to want to try to figure it out. But the vast majority of Power 5 schools are Nike schools. That's just a fact, right? And so there's a pretty good chance that they're the ones that are going to be winning national championships in football. And it also just so happens that Nike sponsors or whatever the really good football programs. And that has nothing to do with the clothes that they wear. Come on, man.
Tom says, don't you think Sam Hartman is totally focused on his receivers, especially at this point in the preseason? Come on, I'm so tired of the Under Armour deal and all the conference realignments. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's kind of, and basically Sam Hartman's response was like, I'm over it. I really, it's just gear was basically, who cares? I'm here to play football. That's literally, like if you're going to read into his answer, and that's, I'm here to play football. I'm not here to talk about, what we're wearing and what we're not wearing or anything else.
All he cares about.
I think I know Vince was tired of the whole, what shoe company they're going to be with a long time ago. So,
man,
it's just something you're going to have to live with for basically 11 years. At least 11 years, they're going to be with Under Armour again. So there's
if you don't like it, find a Nike school.
Nothing any of us can do about it. That's right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Just hope that they come out with a Marcus Freeman line. That's my wife. I actually was talking to my wife about this morning. It's like, how stupid do you have to be if you are the apparel company of the most visible college football program in the country, the biggest college football brand in the country, and you've got your head coach out there wearing stuff at practice that he's photographed in every day, and you don't have it for sale to the general public the minute that he wears it and those photos go out. You're literally just costing yourself.
Absolutely.
You're throwing money. You're throwing money down the drain. You're costing yourself money by not having stuff ready to go.
No doubt. I completely agree with that. That's a missed opportunity. That's a missed opportunity. They had the Navy uniforms in the bookstore as soon as they made the announcement. There's no reason that they can't have the Marcus Freeman stuff in the bookstore as soon as he wears it.
Let's talk about that. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame's alternate uniforms for the Navy game in Ireland are blank.
I think that they are traditionally simple, and I'm cool with it. I really am. I think it's a
little things on the shoulders.
Yeah,
and
you know what?
Shamrock kind of thing. And
there's a flag on the back, like on the collar, that kind of a thing. I like them. I think that they are Notre Dame's home uniforms with a little touch of Ireland to them. Okay, I'm cool with that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they look solid. They're nothing spectacular. I'd always like to see when they do alternate stuff, maybe something a little bit more added to the helmet, especially since they are going to Ireland. Like a shamrock, or maybe like a bigger Irish flag or something like that, since they are the Fighting Irish. But I think it's a solid look. Not going to blow you away by any means, but
it's funny to me, the people that were pissed off about the green on green. It's too much. It's too much. And then they're pissed off about the Navy ones. It's not enough. It's like, I'm just sorry that you're just a depressed person.
I guess I didn't realize so many people were pissed about the green on green, but I shouldn't be surprised, but
I'm sure it's a vocal minority, you know what I mean? But it's the ones that you hear, it's just, I don't know. It's ridiculous.
So Heather Dinich says that after the fall of the Pac-12, they should consider redoing the 2024 college football playoff format to have the 5 highest ranked conference champions and then the 7th highest ranked teams after that make the playoffs. So you'd have 5 automatic qualifiers, 7 at-large bids versus the format that they have agreed to that they're going to play with next year is 6. The top 6 conference champions are the AQs, and then you would have 6 at-large bids after that. So do you buy or sell Dinich's proposal?
It's 100% buy, and I think that's the logical proposal at this point, especially if the Pac-12 isn't going to exist. I think we got to wait to see where the dominoes fall with those last 4. Like, are they going to get wrapped up into the Mountain West? Is the 8 now? We're hearing that the ACC is somewhat interested in Stanford and Cal. Boo, bad decision. But
don't like that idea.
Let's see what happens with the Final 4. But let's say they rebuild the Pac-12 with a bunch of Mountain West and they go under the moniker of the Pac-12, right? Are they a Power 5 conference anymore? No, I don't think they should have an automatic bid at that point, because that's what it is. The Power 5 all have an automatic bid for the champion,
right?
And then it's the next highest rated conference champion, right? So at this point, even if they rebuild the Pac-12 using Mountain West schools, it's not a Power 5 anymore. It needs to be 4+1.
You're bringing up group of 5 teams and calling yourself a Power 5. I definitely think the Pac, right now it's the Pac-4. It's not even the Pac-12. They might still call themselves the Pac-12, but they are not a Power 5 conference. And if they do what you're talking about, bringing up Mountain West schools and bringing in SMU, that's their big move. And it's really the only move they have to try to keep this going. I don't think that they're worthy of an automatic bid. They are essentially, group of 6 at that point, because you're eliminating one of the Power 5 and you're making them not a group of 5, but a group of 6 school.
Right. So does that mean the Mountain West goes away? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
It's a whole wacky scenario at this point, and I just think the Pac-12 is dead, and they just need to, let's let it go quietly into the night at this point, and then you might as well just join up with the Mountain West at this point, because there
really are no other options.
Stanford has other athletic programs that are good, right? But they don't give a crap about football, and it's been obvious for a really, really long time. So let them go and play in the Mountain West. They'll be more than competitive in there, and as a byproduct of that, Notre Dame won't play them every year. It's a win-win for everybody.
That's a good question, because I saw, you brought up that ACC thing, and of course I saw some people, in the replies on Twitter saying, "Oh, is this to appease Notre Dame since Notre Dame plays Stanford every year?" No, that would not be to appease. Bringing Stanford into the ACC is not a move to appease Notre Dame. What Notre Dame ends up doing with that series, I mean, I would just have to think that given the current standing of things, we've talked about replacing Stanford with UCLA on the schedule in that USC California rotation. To me, it just makes more and more sense all the time. And obviously UCLA would have to want to do it, and obviously Notre Dame would have to want to do it. But I think for Notre Dame, again, if your goal is to get out there in California every year, if you alternated with USC and UCLA instead of USC and Stanford, you would get to Los Angeles, the most fertile recruiting grounds in Southern California every year, and you would get one of them here every year. I think it would just make more sense.
I completely agree with you.
They're both obviously in the Big Ten together, so it would be easier for them to make that work, with accommodations with the Big Ten, because they could basically just do what the Pac-12 had done for years, is because USC and Stanford were partners essentially playing Notre Dame, those two schools had to play at the front of the schedule every year to make those bye weeks during conference play work in October and November. And so it would be very easy for the Big Ten to just drop USC and UCLA into that same kind of rotation. And, if they were both playing Notre Dame every season.
I would be fine with that because I don't see UCLA falling off as far as Stanford has fallen off. You know what I mean? I don't see that being the case. And I get that playing Stanford gets you on the West Coast. Like, I get that part of it, but it doesn't get you into a fertile recruiting area as much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Have they gotten guys from Northern California in the past? Yeah, they have. You're going to get way more talent down in Southern California. And so I would much rather play in the Coliseum and the Rose Bowl down there in LA than up north in Palo Alto. I just don't think that does as much for you. So if they can somehow make that work and UCLA is on board, which I don't know why they wouldn't be, first of all, because that you're guaranteeing yourself a sellout as a home game.
Well,
right?
Look, the TV networks are dictating all of this stuff.
Right.
With the Big Ten being on NBC and Notre Dame potentially going forward as an NBC partner in this primetime package, this would allow, like we've talked about, there's been talk about Notre Dame potentially doing more Big Ten scheduling, as a partner with NBC because of NBC's primetime Big Ten package. And again, this fits that as well.
Absolutely.
If Notre Dame and UCLA are both playing, and you could even throw like Oregon and Washington into the mix there if you wanted to, like any of those schools, you're just talking about West Coast trips. But if we'll just keep it at USC and UCLA, if they're both playing them, then NBC would be able to televise both the home game and the road game every year that Notre Dame has when they play those schools because of the Big Ten primetime package. So, I mean, it would be a bonanza for everybody, really, if you replace Stanford with UCLA.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. It's win-win. And, depending on what happens to Stanford over the next couple of weeks, you got to drop them like a hot potato. I mean, I wanted to drop them anyway, but this gives you a beautiful excuse to do so. Beautiful.
Right. Keith asks, Stanford and Cal to the ACC. How is that cost effective? It's not, but none of this stuff is cost effective. But for the ACC, it's even less so because there's no benefit to the ACC in adding Cal and Stanford because the reason they're leftovers is because they're leftovers. Nobody wants them. They're not in a desirable market. Their football programs are not good enough. And all you would be doing is adding a couple more, also ran football programs to your conference and making everybody in your conference have to make all these trips out to the West Coast every year to markets, to a market that nobody cares about. You'd have half-filled football stadiums out there. So we have the official announcement.
Yeah, it came in an email.
All right. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about it.
I don't know. It's just funny that they said formerly known as. No, it's still known as that name. Like, I don't. Anyway. It's Notre Dame. They do things the way they want to.
Right. Fill in the blank, Vince. It's blank that Colorado football players have their social media handles on the back of their practice jerseys now.
Unfortunately, probably shades of the future. Like, that's so stupid. It's so dumb. But here's the thing. Like, if you go on Notre Dame's website, like let's say basketball, for example, on the roster, it's got their social media handles on there.
There are schools all over the country doing this on the websites. Here's the IG account. Here's the TikTok account.
Putting their names on the back of the jersey or putting their social media crap on the back of their jersey is just one extra step. I mean, I think it's dumb, personally. They're practice jerseys. You're not putting your names on the back of your practice jerseys. This isn't the NFL. And most NFL teams don't even do that anyway. Yeah. But you're going to put your social media on the back? It's one step too far for me, but it wouldn't surprise me if that became a normal thing.
I was going to say, I'm surprised more schools aren't doing it already.
Yeah.
Alex said that UCF did it with game day uniforms. I would not be down with that.
No, that's a hard no for that one.
But at the same time, it's, like when you're talking about NIL and just everything else going on right now, this is part of the personal brand. And like I said, I'm surprised that they don't do more, just like look at Notre Dame and how they have the different football players will, they'll get the video of themselves doing whatever, and
Sure.
they'll tweet it out or put it out on the gram and whatever else. And
Well, they
like
got what?
the stuff with the recruits last
Yeah,
week where they were sharing stuff on social media. So
they got was it Braylon James? That's the rapper that's on the team, like using his
so.
music.
I think
Using
so.
his
Oh,
music
that's right.
over the
That's right.
video. Like, I mean, they're all doing stuff. It's just not as in your face. Wouldn't it be funny, Sean? Wouldn't it be funny? Colorado start out 0-4, 0-5 or something like that. And the cameras are always going to be in Dion's face. And he's going to be like, "That's it. I told you this was going to happen. I'm taking your names off the back of your practice jerseys. No more social media names.
No more handles." Have you seen the Jose Ramirez knockout punch of
just
Tim Anderson?
Classic. The call is better than the actual video, by the way.
I know. I wish we could use it.
You've heard it though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down goes Anderson.
It was great. Just, I mean, it was funny because I think it's Jim Passon covers like Chicago sports or whatever. And he's like, it was the next day, and he's like, I've been in 2 different clubhouses today, and if I've heard "Down goes Anderson" once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Like everybody is talking about it. Freaking!
And it was almost like hockey, because usually it's just a big scrum.
Yes,
and they start wrestling around with each other. You don't see them actually square off with each other, and like the umpire backs off like a hockey official would do. The umpire kind of backs away, and they just kind of go at it, and got a couple shots in, and then Ramirez with that big heavy hand just caught Anderson on the jaw. And man, I've never seen a baseball player go down like that. That was,
I mean, it didn't even look like he hit him that hard, and he just,
I know. Anderson got a 6-game suspension. Ramirez got 3. And I don't know if you saw any of the follow-up. Apparently it had to do with Anderson has been like, he's known for like harder tags than necessary, I guess. And Ramirez and like the Guardians had kind of called him out on it earlier, either in the season or the series. And I guess he pulled somebody off the bag, a Cleveland player off the bag on Friday, pulled him off the bag, and he was called out. And then Ramirez went in, and I think that, they kind of said some stuff, and Anderson tagged him hard again. And Ramirez was like, all right, well, I'm done with that. Here we go. So he dropped him. It was like, yeah, Tyler saying like, that's probably the best fight that I've seen since Nolan Ryan pounding down Robin Ventura.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Probably
I even know that one. But it's just like Anderson squares up, and I saw somebody else like do a breakdown of the video, which is why I had too much time on my hands today. But he squares up like a lefty. It's like, dude, you're not a lefty. So like that didn't work out too well for him. And then he tries to go swing, and then he just takes one. Like, I just don't know how that knocked him out. It just didn't look like it hit him but he went down like a sack of potatoes, man.
I know.
Just like a sack of flour, some sort of a sack. He's just down. And then he couldn't even walk off the field. Like did you see that footage?
Yeah, he was,
he's like, Drew, like, oh my gosh, man, he got just hammered, and then he gets double the game.
I'm surprised he was cleared to play the next day if he was.
Man, there's no way. There's no way. Well, he got suspended for 6 games, so unless he's
well, I guess they're both appealing the suspensions,
of course.
But something else happened this afternoon. I didn't have this on your rundown, but it started to blow up this afternoon. Baltimore Orioles TV announcer Tim Brown has been suspended for what are basically some pretty innocuous and objectively pragmatic comments that he made. They were on TV in Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago. The Orioles were wrapping up their series with the Rays. Brown said, quote, "The Orioles have won more games against them this season than the last 2 combined," end quote. Like he was, and the Orioles are in first place right now. And he's basically talking about how the Orioles have not had a lot of success against the Rays. And I mean, they haven't had success against anybody before this year, basically. But that was apparently Peter Angelos or John Angelos, the Orioles owner, didn't like the comments
What?
and has had him suspended for saying the Orioles have won more games against them this season than the last two combined.
That's just
because
a fact. That's not even an opinion.
apparently he's not being glossy and homerish enough. He's stating fact. I mean, what he's doing is talking about how good they've played against them this year. It's not a negative.
That's a total positive. It's like, hey,
yeah,
we haven't been great in the past, but we're doing great now. Or the Rays have been in the World Series, and the Baltimore Orioles have won more games against them this year than they have in a bunch of years back. Like, how is that even a negative? Wow.
I know.
Now, is this owner just like an old crotchety idiot?
Well, yes, the Angelos, that's
okay.
That's basically why Baltimore has not been very good for a long time.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But again, if you have to go that far, to be positive, and like I watched this clip, and a lot of other people have watched this clip, and like nothing is said, like in a sarcastic tone, in a negative tone. It's basically all just, hey, folks, the Orioles are, going for the series win, and here's all this stuff, and they've won more games against them this season than the last two combined, that kind of thing. And
that's just a fact. Those are numbers. The owner doesn't like math, apparently. I wonder if he's a new math guy.
I don't know. Okay. I've been meaning to ask you this. I meant to ask you this last week. Paul Reubens.
This was supposed to be on Friday with Jesse, and my guess is Jesse's too young to really have crossed paths with this young man, old man, whatever.
Paul Reubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman, unfortunately passed away last week after a battle with cancer. So I'm curious, Vince, as a child of the 80s, where did Pee Wee show up on your radar?
It's Pee Wee's Playhouse, man. Used to watch it all the time as a kid. Love that show. I watched it all the time. Cowboy Curtis, Pee Wee Herman, The Talking Window, like all of it. Like I used to watch that show all the time as a kid. And then he came out with some movies and things like that. And they were a little weird. But so is Pee Wee Herman. I mean, Pee Wee's Big Adventure was where he got his bike stolen and all that. Like, I don't remember what year that was that it came out, but there were parts of that movie that like scared me, which really worries me as to how old I might have been when that came out. Let's see. Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Oh, okay. 1985. I was 4. All right. So I feel better about that. But there were parts of that movie that like scared me, And we used to use quotes from that movie all the time. Like, I'm a rebel, daddy. Rebel. Stuff like that. Like, Large Mart, like all of that's like, that was, it was a part of my childhood. Not a big part, but it was a part of my childhood. There's no doubt about that.
He was a big sports fan, I guess, too.
Really?
And,
I didn't know that.
And unfortunately, and I just heard an interview, not with him, but someone was kind of talking about him. They were talking about his sports fandom and stuff like that. He did like a big, long sit down with Pee Wee a few years back and was kind of trying to make, I guess he had pitched, like a movie, kind of trying to make a comeback kind of thing. And it wasn't really going anywhere, unfortunately. And then literally within the week after I heard this interview, I heard that he passed. So
I had no idea he was battling cancer. And that's,
I didn't either.
That's a shame, obviously. Yep. And I know his reputation was tarnished with some off the air things, and it's unfortunate. But it was a part of my childhood. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Pee Wee's Playhouse.
I figured with you being in that age demo that it had to be right in there. So I'm glad it was. I'm glad you got some good stories.
Right smack dab in the middle of it, man.
I was a little too old to hit that. I just remember him on, some of the other, like doing some MTV stuff, I think. And, like you'd see I know you, Rabbit. What am I? Or, whatever. So.
Dude, I thought it was hilarious when I was a little kid, man. Like you're talking, if he made that movie in 1985, I don't know when Pee Wee's Playhouse was on, but let's see, Pee Wee's Playhouse. Let's see when that was on. It ran from 86 to 90. So that means I was 5 to 9. Like that was totally in my wheelhouse of time. You know what I mean? Like that was me. So, and you only had, people have to remember too, some of the young guns in here, you got to remember what was available back in the late 80s, like TV wise. It's not like you could sit down and, you had a bunch of channels at your disposal. Like cable was at the very least in its infancy, you know what I mean? There wasn't a whole lot of options out there. It was mostly whatever you got on the air. Cable boxes were very, very new. So
yeah,
Pee Wee's Playhouse was right there, man. It was right there.
But then there were a lot of, again, like after he passed last week, there were a lot of stories about how, like there was some, like you'd hear stories about how he was like really, really nice to people, like when the camera was off. There was like someone who was like relatively new, like on the TV set or something like that. And he invited him over to his house. And so the guy showed up and Pee Wee like made him sandwiches and just kind of showed him around the house and all his memorabilia and stuff like that. And then that was it, just a nice guy, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very fortunate.
Yeah.
That's right, John. That's right, John. We had cartoons. Every Saturday morning was Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner and all that.
Like, I don't remember how, how it landed as far as like when it was on, you know what I mean? Like, was it on Saturday morning? I honestly don't know.
I'm not sure,
but I'd have to look that up. But all I know is I watched it a bunch when I was a kid and it was a staple in our house. Yep. So, definitely watched it.
All right. Well, we will wrap up with that. And again, for the live viewers, Tuesday's show is going to start at 5:00. The live show on YouTube will start at 5 because we're going to go out and we have Notre Dame football practice to watch at 7:00 Tuesday night. So we'll do the show 5 to 6. That's going to be it. We're not going to be able to go over tomorrow. So we'll kind of be in and out in an hour, but we'll start at 5. And then, of course, Wednesday, we'll be talking all about what we see out there.
Yeah, baby. Should be good. Hopefully it's full go scrimmage with refs, the whole thing. So that's what I'm hoping.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, man.
All right. Hit the like button before you leave and subscribe, rate, and review. Vince, Kristen, happy anniversary once again.
And happy anniversary to Sean and Stacy.
Thank you very much.
We're only 11 years behind you. We're catching up. No, we're not.
Right.
It's exactly the same. Always.
All right. We will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.